It is like a freaking kilometer long. It is insane, right? This is nuts. Welcome back! You guys wanted a part 2 and here it is. I will save you guys a long intro because I covered it all in part 1, so make sure you check it out if you haven't yet. But I will just take a moment to say that in this video I'm going to cover 11 more US culture shocks that my German boyfriend Misha experienced coming to the US. And also don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you haven't yet. Alright guys, I promise that I'm going to do a full apartment tour for you guys, pointing out all the differences between this apartment and US apartments. But I'm not there yet. But there is one feature I want to show you guys that despite how much I've talked to Misha about these differences between our apartments, I failed to ever bring this up because it's just so kind of menial and I just never thought about it. But it was shocking to him. So this is our bedroom, and on the ceiling you will notice that there is no overhead light fixture. It's not even possible to install an overhead light fixture. And I say that because I know that a lot of Germans will move their light fixtures from apartments to apartment, and whenever they get there then they install the light fixture themselves. Well, that's just it. I just want to make sure everyone understands I can't do that here. But despite there not being any overhead light fixture, there is still a light switch over here by the door, which is a little confusing. Whenever Misha and I were living here for a couple weeks, we went to the store to buy some bedroom lamps because mine had gotten destroyed in the move, and we came back and I went to turn mine on and it didn't turn on. And so of course I start troubleshooting, checking to see if I actually screwed the bulb in all the way or that I plugged the lamp in, and it still didn't work. So Misha pretty much decided that it was a faulty lamp, and he had resigned himself to the fact that we were gonna have to go back to the store and exchange it for one that actually works. But then I went over to the light switch and I flicked it on and the lamp turned on, and Misha was just like, what? How did that work? Because that was something that he had never seen in Germany. The light switch from across the room is connected to the outlet that I plugged my lamp into. And actually, it's not even connected to the entire outlet. Remember that we have 2 plug outlets in the US, and really that light switch is connected only to one plug of that outlet, and that happens to be the plug that I had used to put my lamp into, and I didn't realize that it was one of those special outlets yet. And by special outlets, I mean these outlets that are connected to light switches throughout the apartments or houses. It's really common to see in the US. So I explained to Misha that whenever you moved into a new place in the US, a lot of times you're having to play outlet roulette, as I call it, where you figure out which outlets are connected to which light switches. And of course I don't want to make it sound like every single outlet is connected to a light switch, but some are, especially in rooms where you don't see an overhead light fixture, and you really just want to make sure that you're not plugging in your TV or your Wi-Fi modem or your microwave into an outlet where the electricity can just be shut off with a light switch. I think that most people understand that the climate in the US and the climate in Germany is varied, and what you experience is dictated by where you are in the country. And there are a lot of climate zones in the US that match what you would find in Germany, but the DC area is not one of them, guys. The DC area and like the whole southeast part of the US is so hot in the summer and incredibly humid. I feel like a lot of people kind of underestimate how much the humidity impacts the heat index, and it's awful. It is terrible. I can totally deal with 90 degrees with like low humidity. I can go for a run in that. I can spend all day in that. Give me 90 degrees with 90% humidity and it is awful. And that is what summer is like in DC. So I remember talking to Misha before he came over to the US because I got here before him, and I was telling him, babe, it's starting to get really, really hot here because it was like the end of May, starting to get into those really hot summer months, and he was like, yeah, whatever, I'll be fine. I was like, no, I don't think you understand how hot it is. Trying to like get him to mentally prepare for this because he had never been been in heat like this. Like, we'd been to Italy and Greece together, but it was in March. He's been to Tenerife, Spain, but it was like a drier heat. And he went to Singapore, but I think it wasn't during the hot months. So I was trying to get him to understand, like, you are coming into a climate that you have never experienced. But he just didn't believe me, guys, to the point where he was like, babe, whenever I get there, I really don't want to use air conditioning. I want to use the windows to cool down our apartment, because he's a good German, and that is what Germans do. They cool down their houses and their apartments naturally with windows. And I was just like, okay, babe, we'll see when you get here, I guess, like, knowing this is never going to work. Cooling down the apartment with your windows in DC in the summer is like almost a non-option, okay? So anyway, he gets here in June, and at this point, I mean, we're hitting like mid-90s on a consistent basis. It is 80 to 90% humidity, and I picked him up from the airport, and like I told you guys in my first video, I took him to a Mexican restaurant his first night here, and we sat outside and we ate. But what I didn't mention is that while we were sitting there at night, we were just dripping with sweat. Like, sweat was pouring off of our faces, and we were completely soaked and drenched in sweat. I know that sounds disgusting, because it was disgusting. Guys, even at nighttime, DC is like a sweat box, especially in the city where the heat just gets like trapped by the buildings and like the humidity and everything, right? So that first night was really like shocking in a sense to Misha, where he was just like, wow, you were not kidding. It is really, really hot. So needless to say, Misha did give into the concept of air conditioning, and we have been using it for the summer, but I will say that we put it on a really reserved setting just to save as much electricity as we can, because we both appreciate how much it wastes. And I just want to say something real quick. Misha, despite being German and having never really lived in air conditioning before, I'm telling you guys, he did not get sick from the air conditioning. And I say this because there are a lot of Germans out there who are convinced that air conditioning makes you sick. And I know that I'm just opening myself up right now to getting hundreds of comments referencing German articles talking about how much air conditioning makes you sick. But guys, I'm here to tell you that it is a myth. It is not a real thing. As long as you keep your air conditioning unit well maintained, the vents are clean, and you live a normal, healthy life, meaning you go outside and you don't just like hole up into your house or apartment all day, every day, you're not going to get sick from the air conditioning. If that were true, and I feel like I've had this conversation with many Germans, if it were true that air conditioning makes you sick, I would live in a perpetual state of sickness. Misha and I would have spent the whole summer just being sick. We didn't get sick at all. Well, I got strep throat, but that was because of my sister's children. They're little carriers, okay? But we didn't get sick from the air conditioning. Americans don't get sick from the air conditioning. People don't get sick from air conditioning. Okay, I'm sorry, ran over. This culture shock is not about air conditioning. So whenever we would go outside, Misha would be just like melting into a puddle of despair because it was so hot walking around. Like, we're talking about the kind of hot where you find yourself walking so slowly just to like minimize the amount of energy that your body is expending so that you don't like heat yourself up more than you absolutely have to. And he's looking around, guys, and this is what really got him. This is what just like blew Misha's mind. He was looking around and he was seeing people wearing suits. Because we're living in DC, a lot of people work for the government or lobbyists or businesses. I mean, it's your typical city where people are going to work and wearing suits. But it was so hot, guys, that Misha could not fathom the idea of wearing a suit in this weather. He's there wearing shorts and a t-shirt, and he, like I said, is just like melting. So he could not like conceptualize how someone could be wearing a suit in this weather. And I told him, like, eventually you get acclimated to it. Like, I'm from Pennsylvania, so I was definitely not acclimated to it. Spending 4 years in Texas and 2 years in the Middle East did not get me ready for the DC heat, guys. It still really bothers me. But if you go outside in it all the time and you exercise in it or you go for runs in it, you start to acclimate to it. And I told him, like, if he did that, he maybe could find himself in a position where he could wear a suit if he wanted to. But he never got used to the heat, guys. He never did. And thank thankfully for him, it's October and it's finally cooled off. Yesterday it was actually like cool out, so we'll see how next summer goes for him. So here's a fun one for you. Our calendars are different. And in a past video, I talked about how Americans and Germans write the date differently. And by Germans, I mean everybody else in the world. So Americans will write the month and then the day and then the year. And everybody else writes the day and then the month and then the year. So again, like with our way we do degrees and measurements and everything else, we are off from the rest of the world. But that's not what this is about. So Misha and I were looking at buying flights to go to Colorado, and he had skyscanner.de up, which is like the German version of Skyscanner, and I went over to physically point out on the little calendar which dates I wanted us to get tickets for. And when I went over and I looked at the calendar, I was like, wait, your calendar is different from mine. Like the dates weren't matching up with the days I expected them to be on. And so I was like, is this the right month? And I'm looking, no, it was August, it was the right month. And I was like, what is happening? And I look a little closer and I realize that on the German calendar, the first day of the week is a Monday. Well, the first day of the week in the US is Sunday. It's not Monday. Mind blowing to both of us. Somehow, neither of us knew that, which is really surprising because there are a lot of times where I know something that he doesn't know or he knows something I don't know and we kind of balance each other out that way, like a nice yin and yang. But this we had no clue about and I found it really interesting. So of course he's looking at me and he's like, yeah, obviously it starts on a Monday because Saturday and Sunday is the weekend. It's the week's end. And furthermore, you're going to start the week with a work day. And I was like, no, I don't look at it that way. I look at the weekend like bookends. So you have Sunday on the front end of the week and you have Saturday on the back end of the week. It's still a weekend, but it's on either ends of the week. And why do you have to start the week on a work day? Why? Like, we just call that the first day of the work week, not the first day of the week, like if that makes sense to you guys. Now, I looked this up because I was really interested to find out how countries are starting their weeks on entirely different days, and it turns out these reasons are rooted in religion, or at least that's what I found, and I'm not gonna go over it, guys. So if you're interested in this topic, please feel free to go and look it up on Google and research it yourself. Okay, the next thing that really surprised Misha was how diverse the US is, and specifically in DC, which is where we're living. And like I said in my first video, guys, Misha is an incredibly smart guy. He's smarter than I'll ever be. Don't tell him I said that, all right? I never said that. So he completely understands like the US history and with immigration and how that has like impacted our demography. And he knows that we are, as a country, very diverse. But this is one of those things where it's one thing to like know it, read about it, see it in TV shows or whatever, but it's another thing to come and physically see it for yourselves, live it, and experience it. Like walking down our street, which, guys, I promise is nowhere near where tourists would go. Unless you're coming here to visit a friend, tourists would have no reason to come where we're living. So these are all like local DC residents, and you're hearing 5 or 6 languages just walking down the street to get to a restaurant or a grocery store because it's that diverse of a city. In fact, it's so diverse that DC is called a majority minority city, and I'm not exactly sure how I feel about that term yet, but it is a good way to describe it. So of the 700,000 people that live in DC, and some of you who are unfamiliar with DC might be like, wow, why is it so few people? Because it's a huge city. Well, the boundaries of the district, DC proper, are actually quite small. So it's only 700,000 people. So of that population, 45% are white. The other 55% are minorities. We're a majority minority city. Now, Germany has a good bit of diversity. I don't at all want to try to make it sound like Germany is this homogeneous country, because that would be completely false, and that is not what I'm saying. But it is a huge difference, guys. Like if you walk around Frankfurt or Berlin or Munich, and then you come to the US and you walk around LA or New York City, Chicago, Miami, DC, you're going to notice the huge difference between the two countries. And before I sat down to make this video, I actually tried to look up the numbers for Berlin so that I could kind of compare DC, which is our country's capital, to Berlin, because I know it's Germany's capital, it's a huge city, and I know that there is a massive Turkish population there. And so I thought that it would make a really good comparison to illustrate this point that I'm trying to make to you guys. But I couldn't find those numbers. I could only find like the percentage of Germans versus the percentage of foreign born, but foreign born is not what I was looking for. That's not the same thing as trying to find like the racial makeup of German citizens living in Berlin. So I told Misha that I was struggling to find these numbers, and I asked him if he could look it up for me in German, because a lot of times I just can't find exactly like little information that I'm looking for in English. He has a better time finding it in German, and it's more information and so on. So he sat down and he, like, after I explained to him what I was looking for, and he looks at me and he was just like, babe, I can't think of a way to look this up that doesn't feel wrong. And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, we just don't look at race the same way that you guys do. I can't really find those numbers. I can find what like the percentage of Russians living in Germany, or the percentage of Turkish, or the percentage of Polish living in Germany, but I can't find for you like what percent of Germans are Hispanic, or what percent of Germans are Asian. Like, I can't find that for you. It's more of a nationality thing in Germany. And having that conversation, guys, this is the sort of thing that I really love about talking to people who aren't Americans, because it makes me really like question things that we do in the US, or look at it differently. I'm always walking away from a conversation learning something, no matter how little or big it is. And in the US, we very much track race. I mean, my whole time growing up, I filled out surveys and forms where I'm checking the block that I'm Caucasian or white European descent, or whatever option best fits me, and I never thought too much about it. I mean, I'm very familiar with our affirmative action laws, and I always thought that those groupings weren't exactly inclusive enough to like represent every American, and that always kind of bothered me, that they had like, you know, their cop-out was like the other box, and I always wondered how many people are like just trying to fit themselves into a category, or like clicking other when there could have just been additional categories listed. Sorry, I know I'm rambling on, but the point is that I never really like thought about how we do race in the US. Of course, we track immigrants versus Americans, but we, within the American population, we track the racial demography of US citizens. So that was something that I really learned about the US by having this conversation with Misha, and I'm always so thankful for these conversations. But the primary point is that Misha was really surprised to see how diverse DC is, especially coming from East Germany and from living in Mainz for a little bit of time. It is a really, you know, stark contrast between the two regions. All right, next up are coupons. Coupons! Americans love coupons, and likewise, American stores love to give out coupons. They give them out online. On a daily basis, I get at least 15 emails from stores sending me like coupons, and no matter how many times I unsubscribe, they just keep coming back. We get them in hordes of like tons of junk mail, like stuffed into our mailboxes. We get them handed to us at stores when you're cashing out, and they hand you the receipt with a bunch of coupons, or you get them like bundled in with your newspapers if you still do that sort of thing. There are coupons everywhere in the US, and in Germany there are coupons too. So Misha wasn't like, he understood the concept of coupons. He wasn't shocked by the fact that we have coupons, but what he was shocked by was just how much more elevated our coupon culture is. It is way more amplified than what he experienced in Germany, that it's almost sometimes a little overwhelming if you're not used to it, which I was used to it. So I didn't really think too much of it. It was just annoying to throw away all the junk mail. But for Misha, it was like really shocking. So I brought a few examples for you guys because someone made a comment about this on my last video, and I really just want to take the chance to show you the infamous CVS receipt that some of you may have heard about. So this is a CVS receipt for 5 items. That's all we bought, 5 items. And this is how big the receipt is. It is like a freaking kilometer long. It is insane, right? This is nuts, right? And it's because it's full of coupons. These are all coupons starting from here down, okay? And that's how many that CVS hands you whenever you're walking out of the store. And then we also went to Giant and I bought some ice cream, some Halo Top ice cream. And whenever we were getting our receipt from the cashier, she also handed us this little coupon for Halo Top ice cream, so no Giant knows that I love this stuff. And yeah, I also have some junk mail with a bunch of like coupons that I saved for you guys for this video for some reason. And again, that's something that you would experience in Germany, but it is so much more constant here. And another thing that we have sort of similar to this coupon thing are these like rewards cards or membership cards that certain stores will have. And they basically let you get certain items throughout the store at a discounted price, and the items revolve, and it depends on what the item is as to how big the discount will be. So the cards look like this. This is my CVS card and this is my Giant card, and you'll see that they have barcodes on the back, and actually there is also this option with Whole Foods where if you're an Amazon Prime member, which I definitely am, then you can download this like Whole Foods app that you have like your little barcode on there. I think they're called QRF codes actually, and you can scan it at the cashier whenever you're checking out, and all of the items that you have that are eligible for this like membership only discount will be automatically reduced in price whenever you're checking out, and you usually walk away with a good bit of savings. I mean, it varies obviously on how much you buy and what items you buy that are eligible for the discounts. And so Misha started really paying attention to this thing whenever we would go to Giant, which is a grocery store near us, and he noticed this package of bell peppers, which was marked as $10 for people, Giant card holders, right? And if you didn't have a Giant card, which by the way is completely free, you just have to fill out a form and give out some of your information to them, but it's free. If you didn't have a Giant card, you would walk away paying $20 for the same exact package of bell peppers. Bell peppers are already really expensive in the US. $10 I felt like was already expensive. $20 is ridiculous. And so it really behooves you to have these cards, you know, that the store gives out, because sometimes, I mean, you can really cash in on some discounts, and Misha was just like blown away by the fact that you would get a 50% discount on something that's kind of already outrageously priced. And I mean, I thought it was a little overkill too, but I wasn't as surprised because again, this is like normal to me. I grew up with Weiss cards, Sheets cards, all these types of cards. My mom has a keychain just full of these cards because like so many of the stores do this. And you can tell Misha is starting to adapt to the American culture because this is his keychain, guys. And he's got his little cards on here ready to go like a good American. And he told me that in Germany, because I had no idea about this, but there are cards that you can have in Germany that work for specific stores, and as you use the cards, it tracks like what you're buying and it gives you points, and you can redeem those points for certain items in the store and so on, this kind of like system. And I told him that we have a similar system, but they're tied to credit cards. So if you go into Banana Republic or Express or Victoria's Secret, you can apply for the Banana Republic credit card or the Victoria's Secret credit card. And if you use that card in the store, or I think you can also get rewards for buying other things, I'm not exactly sure. But you start to collect points, and eventually those points can be cashed in for like discounts, or you can get entire items free if you get enough points and so on. And so he just kind of laughed because like there are credit cards in Germany. It's not like they don't exist, but not to this level at all. It very much shows that Americans are really comfortable with using credit cards, and Germans, I would say, are much more adverse to it. Like, it's kind of nothing for me to go to a store and sign up for their credit card so I can get whatever discount they're offering by signing up for a credit card. And like me personally, I then just never use the card and it eventually expires, or I cancel it because I just wanted the discount. Okay, another thing that really shocked Misha for him to see here are our lottery vending machines, and they work just like a vending machine, but instead of dispensing soda or chips or some sort of snack, it's dispensing lottery tickets to you. And he just found that really like interesting, and he pointed them out to me. And I didn't realize like how many of these things we have. Turns out they're everywhere and I never noticed them before. So they're in Walmarts, in grocery stores, they're in shopping malls, they're in airports, there are a lot of vending machines everywhere. And basically, you know, once you get the ticket, they're like the scratch off tickets and you can scratch them off. And if you just get like a minimal award, like $2 or whatever, you can take it back to the vending machine and it will use it as credit to give you more tickets. Or if you actually end up with a bigger cash prize, say $100 or $5,000 or $10,000 or whatever pipe dream that someone's actually able to get, if that even ever happens, then you would take it to a store, an eligible store, or you would mail it in to get your cash prize sent to you. All right, I know I talked about ice machines in hotels in my first video, but I'm coming right back to hotels because there are some more things about them that really shocked Misha. And the first thing I will talk about are our hotel breakfasts. The hotel breakfasts in the US pale in comparison to the breakfast that you would have in any hotel in Germany. I don't care if it's a small hotel or a huge hotel. If it offers breakfast, which most hotels in Germany I feel like do, then you can expect to have an amazing breakfast. You're going to see eggs and sausages and bacon, you'll see like probably some like roasted vegetables, you'll see all sorts of rolls and sliced cheeses and hams and pickles and like cut up vegetables like bell peppers and cucumber. You're gonna see yogurts and muesli and juices, like at least 4 different kinds of juices, of course coffee. Oftentimes it'll be a served coffee situation where someone's coming around and pouring coffee for you or getting you specialized coffee. You're going to see like all sorts of fruit, cut up whole pieces of fruit. Then you'll see like sweet, you know, sort of breads and other type things. These breakfast spreads are insane, guys, and I loved them so much. It was actually something that I would really look forward to going to get at a hotel because they were awesome. And so Misha has this like expectation for hotel breakfast, and the hotels in the US have pretty much crushed his spirit because you don't get breakfast like that. Maybe in the really, really fancy hotels that I would never experience because I can't afford that. So oftentimes if a hotel offers breakfast, which definitely not like a guarantee, right? Then you're going to see 2 terms tossed around. You're going to see American breakfast and continental breakfast. Continental breakfast is definitely the sadder of the 2. It basically has basic coffee, juice, and tea, and then maybe some whole pieces of fruit that you can just grab and go, some packaged danishes, just maybe some toast, maybe with some jelly. Very, very, very basic things, and it's great for the hotel because they're able to say that they offer a breakfast, but it is pretty much the easiest and cheapest breakfast that they could possibly offer. And really it just involves someone bringing items out of a fridge, setting them out, and taking them back into the fridge. And then American breakfasts are a little bit more involved. So you actually have cooked items like scrambled eggs or bacon or sausage that are actually somewhat just reheated. It's not like someone's back there actually grilling the bacon and sausage. And then you'll have like everything that the American or the continental breakfast offered, but with like yogurts and milks. Maybe you'll see this like waffle machine that everybody always loves to make their own waffles with. So it's a little bit more involved in the fact that it has cooked items and a little bit of a bigger spread, but guys, it is still nothing compared to these German breakfasts. And so Misha, for the first couple hotels that we stayed at in the US, was like expecting a breakfast, like, oh babe, does this hotel have breakfast? And I'm like, yeah. And then we would go to it because I already know it's gonna be really sad. And it was just, you know, it took a while for him to just like lower his expectations to the level that I have it at for a US hotel breakfast. So we really miss hotel breakfast at Germany. I'm sure you didn't expect me to talk this much about hotel breakfast, but I figured out how to do it. But there is one thing that I do not miss about German hotels, and that is the fact that you have to check out of a German hotel. Maybe that sounds strange to some of you guys. In the US, as long as you make a reservation with a card, which I actually don't think you can make a reservation without a card anymore, you don't have to check out. You can just leave the hotel, just walk out and leave. You don't have to tell anyone that you're leaving because the hotel has your card on file and they charge it at the end of the checkout time. And if you used any items from the mini fridge or whatever snacks they leave in the room to crazy charge you for, then they just retroactively add that to your bill and charge it to your card. It's not a big deal. In fact, if you go to like the counter at a US hotel and ask to check out, maybe they even look at you kind of weird depending on the hotel because they're like, why are you wasting my time? Just leave, you're good. Unless you need an invoice or something like this or had an issue that you need to tell them about, you can just walk out of the hotel. In Germany, it is not like this, guys. You have to check out of the hotel. I don't really get the inner workings of a German hotel, so I don't know why, because they will have my card on file and yet I'm still having to give them my card for them to physically run and for me to pay for the hotel and sign a receipt and then leave the hotel. And I know that this probably sounds stupid and like a tiny thing that you just don't care about, but it really irked me if you couldn't tell. And that's probably because when I was living in Germany, I had a job where I had to travel so much, guys. I was constantly staying in hotels and every morning it was so rushed and frantic for me because of the responsibilities that I had for my boss. And so checking out was like an ordeal that I had to get through every time. And it was frustrating to me because oftentimes there would be a line because everyone's having to check out of the hotel. And so there I am standing in line, having so much stuff to do and things to worry about. And I'm just standing there waiting for them to run my card. Anyway, so this isn't about me, this is about Misha, and like what I'm getting at is that every time that we would go to a hotel here, he's always asking me like, hey, did you check out? Did you remember to check out? Or like he found one of the hotel keys in my wallet the other day and he was like, babe, you forgot to give this to the hotel. Did you remember to check out? I'm like, oh my gosh, Misha, you don't have to check out of the hotels here. Like they don't care. So that was very surprising or shocking to Misha because, you know, he's just used to the German way of doing things. I finally got to take Misha to the campus where I went to college, which is for Pennsylvania State University, or Penn State for short. And we were driving around and driving through the campus a little bit while I was like pointing out buildings that were significant to me or sharing funny stories and like just really like telling him about my warm memories that I have associated with this school. And at one point he was like laughing and I was like, what? And he's like, you know, you wouldn't be able to drive through my college campus. And I was like, what do you mean? Because it's like pedestrian only, you know, I know that it's really popular in Europe to have all these pedestrian zones. And he was like, no, because it is so small that it would not make sense to say that you drove through the campus. Like that concept is just stupid. And I was like, really? So I know that probably German universities all have sort of different campuses, and that's the case for the US too. It's not like they're all the same. For example, where I'm going to school now, where the campus begins and where it ends isn't clearly defined. There is like a little courtyard area where it's like, okay, this is George Washington University campus. But beyond that, like where the university buildings are versus where the city buildings are just kind of like starts to bleed into each other. And that's very different from like where I went to school, the type of campus Penn State has, or Auburn University, or University of Maryland, or University of Texas, and Texas A&M. All of these bigger schools will have these campuses that are just like chock full of classroom buildings and facilities and stadiums and so on. Like where I went to school at Penn State, it is a massive campus. Like if we're talking about only the primary part of the campus where most students spend most of their time, it's an entire mile long. It's a little bit over a mile because I ran it so many times. And it's like a half a mile, 3/4 mile deep. It is a huge area and it's full of classroom buildings, administrative buildings, and laboratories, and it has a massive library. There's an entire hotel on the campus complete with ballrooms. There are fraternity houses, like we're talking massive 3-story houses. There's like student movie theaters and auditoriums. There's convenience stores. There are restaurants. I don't know if I said there's 5 or 6 dining facilities yet. This campus is huge. There is even an entire creamery, which is where ice cream is made. It's part of the food science program, and they actually make ice cream from the milk from the cows that are on the outskirts of the campus that are part of the agricultural program, and they sell this ice cream. It is massive. And then if you start to get just a little bit outside of that main area that I'm talking about, a short walk away is Beaver Stadium, which is our football stadium. It seats 110,000 people. This is on campus, guys. And then you have the Bryce Jordan Center, which is a massive concert venue that is also where our basketball team plays. And then you have this huge baseball stadium and the soccer stadium. And I guess it would be kind of overwhelming if you were used to like just a couple buildings being your college campus. It was just really shocking for Misha to see like how big this campus was. Okay, last one, and I know this is one that you guys have probably heard before, but damn it, I'm gonna cover it anyway. And I think I'm going to frame it a little differently than probably what you have heard before. So it is common knowledge, I feel like, that you get free refills on soda in the US. I feel like everybody knows that. Misha definitely knew that before coming over here. But because of how free refills are done in Germany, he had that context in his mind and he applied it to how he would do free refills in the US. So there are free refills in Germany. They're just really rare and only in like really kind of like fast food restaurants or maybe some really small, not fast food, but as close as you can get to fast food restaurants, where you see like the soda fountain machine on the outside of like the counter where all the workers are. Those are usually free refills, and you as a customer are able to go and refill your drink as many times as you want. And we have that too. A lot of fast food restaurants, if not all of them, will have the fountain machine on the outside of the counter so that you can refill as you please. But those are not the only restaurants that you can get free refills. You can get free refills on soda on, I think, every single type of restaurant, whether you see the soda machine or not. And Misha didn't understand that. So whenever we went to a restaurant, and I think Misha never gets soda, and I think this might be the only time he ever got a soda, he drank all of it, and the server asked, "Do you want a refill?" And he said no. And then the server walked away, and I said, "Babe, you don't want any more soda, you know it's free, right?" And he was like, "Oh, I didn't realize that." And he explained to me because he didn't see the soda machine for him to be able to go and refill it himself. And for him, he thought that if a server were to go and refill the drink, that meant he would have to pay for another soda. And again, this is just like because of the context that he has coming from Germany. When a server brings you a second soda, you have to pay for that second soda. And oftentimes in Germany, I mean, they're not even using these fountain machines. They're using like glass bottles that they're giving you sodas through. So of course you would have to pay for a second one. So that was just like an interesting thing to see him go through, where he's like, I know that there are free refills on soda, but this is how I know about free refills. And when it didn't like match up to what he expected, it kind of just shocked him to see how we do free refills. And then also it was shocking to him to know that free refills aren't just for soda, it also extends to coffee. So I was hell-bent on getting Misha to a classic American diner for breakfast so he could have that experience. And Misha was really shocked by the fact that the server just kept coming over endlessly with her pot of coffee and just kept on refilling our cups automatically. Or she would ask, "Do you want to warm up?" And warm up, of course, means, do you want my hot coffee in my little pot here to warm up the coffee that you have had sitting out for 10 minutes or so. So he was surprised that the coffee is like endless. And of course, this isn't like your specialty coffees like Americanos or lattes or espressos or anything like that. It's like your standard American drip coffee that I know a lot of Europeans love to complain about because it really doesn't taste that good. But yeah, so you get free coffee refills in restaurants as well. And another thing that really shocked Misha dealing with this free refill thing, kind of, is that a lot of times when you go to a restaurant, the server will come to your table to greet you and automatically bring waters to give to you. That was really surprising to him, and that's because our waters in restaurants are free, whereas in Germany you have to pay for the water, so you would never have a server automatically bringing it over to you. You would definitely have to order it. Now, of course, in the US you're getting like filtered tap water served to you, and in Germany it's like manufactured bottles of water. I know that there are some restaurants where they can serve you tap water if you ask for it, but I had some very negative experiences with it. So I'm kind of someone to say that you can't really get tap water, at least in a happy way, in a German restaurant. So that was shocking to him, and of course, like, they keep coming over and they'll keep refilling your waters for you if you want. And yeah, it's really a nice kind of thing. And I know that I'm gonna get comments from people saying that you are so stupid thinking that the water is free because you're paying for it, by them upcharging other items on the menu, and like, okay, whatever, I got it. But the point is, this was really shocking to Misha to have these waters just like given to him automatically. And with that, you guys, I am finally done with part 2. I hope that you enjoyed it as much as you guys seem to really like part 1. And like I said in my first video, guys, I have so many of these that I could talk about. So if that's something that you want me to keep on rolling with, let me know. And the best way to let me know, the way that you guys got me to do this part 2, is by giving me a thumbs up on this video, telling me in the comments that you want another one, and also by sharing this video with your friends. And I thank you in advance for it. And guys, don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you haven't yet. I promise it'll be worth your time. And also, thank you so much to my patrons. You guys are awesome, and I appreciate the support. And to show you my appreciation, I posted a patron-only video on my Patreon for you guys to check out, and I hope you like it. If you are interested in becoming one of my patrons, which means that you get access to these videos I make only for my patrons, check out the link. I'll put it in the description below, and I hope to see you guys there. All right, I'll see you next time. Bye!